Hi, I am Lisa Turner, and I'd love to tell you about my book, Our Spiritual Tipping Point. As a mathematical modeler and engineer, and now apparently spiritual teacher, what I do is I spot patterns in the chaos. And I've spotted a pattern, a model that explains exactly why what looks like chaos out there is actually a sign that we are all, both as individuals and as a society and species, at the point of our spiritual tipping point. Everything that looks like it's going wrong is actually perfect, and it's actually a sign. So things like, why, if we live in a democracy, do we have world leaders making decisions that are not for the highest good of all? Despite having better access to food and medical care, we're apparently sicker and have more challenges and problems with food allergies than ever before. Why we are supposedly more affluent than ever before, we experience more poverty and more difference between the wealthy and the not so wealthy. And why, given that there's so much yearning and interest and in spiritual awakening, we experience, or there seems to be, more separation and alienation than ever before. So in this book, I'm going to explain exactly how we've got to where we are and what's coming up next, and what we as individuals can do to not only ride out the waves of chaos, but how we can create real tangible change in our lives, but beyond that, in the whole world. I'm going to share some really powerful models, things like the mechanics of the soul, how anyone can reliably and repeatably connect with their higher self. How to raise your PSYQ, or your vibration, which is kind of like your psychic or spiritual intelligence quotient. And the secret science of the psychic, how anyone can connect to and tap into their spiritual powers. I'm going to share the idea of power centers and how when we activate these, we step into our spiritual power. And the difference between emotional pain and spiritual pain. What a lot of us are experiencing right now isn't actually emotional pain, or that might feel like it and look like it. It's actually spiritual pain. And you can't heal spiritual pain with emotional solutions. And if a lot of people have been trying to do that, I'm wondering why it hasn't worked. I share in this book a little bit about my own personal journey of awakening, and how I was kept as a house prisoner for 5 years by somebody who would probably be labeled as a pedophile, and how my journey to recover from that led to my spiritual awakening, which as an engineer, frankly, made no sense whatsoever. And so I set about researching. I found a lot of myths and a lot of stuff that really didn't work, and I debunked those, a lot of spiritual myths in the book. And I also share exactly what does work with these techniques that are reliable and repeatable. You see, out there, there are a lot of spiritual teachings out there that are very practical, and they give lots of tips and techniques, but they don't have a lot of theory, and a lot of the theory really doesn't make sense. Then there are a lot of spiritual teachings out there that have got really grounded, solid scientific theories, but you're left with going, wow, that's interesting. What now? And what this book does is this brings the two together. Solid theories that really make sense. That's what most people say when they hear this. And practical techniques that really work. And that's also what most people say when they learn these techniques. And I'm going to share this in this book, Our Spiritual Tipping Point. I hope, like me, you believe that this book is a really important book, and it's the right time for this book to be published. So, one more thing in the book. One of the things I'm going to share is how, rather than a lot of spiritual teachings, it's about becoming spiritual and then escaping from a world that's, feels toxic or overwhelming. And I'm going to share exactly why it's really important. Not only is it really important for spiritual people to stay in the world, but I'm going to show how when you step into your spiritual power, not only is that possible, it becomes easy and really important. Because let's face it, if all the spiritual people making decisions for the highest good of all, if they left the world, then by definition, the people who are running the world are people who are not spiritual, not making decisions for the highest good of all. I hope that, like me, you also believe that this is a really important book, and it's the right time for it to be published. And if you're in my community, I would love it if you would give my video a little thumbs up. And if you think this book, you'd love to read this book, then just pop a little comment about that. Somewhere down there, there'll be a comment section. So thanks for watching. Bye for now.